Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this talk. My name is Dr. Craig Kaplan. I'm CEO of IQ Company, and my talk is how to create AGI and not die. So we're going to try to cover that in 20 minutes here. So first of all, what is AGI? AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. So let me just maybe we did a poll, but quick show of hands, how many people here have used ChatGPT or a large language model? Yes, all right, that's great. There's a poll you can do for this conference, which is kind of a cool idea. It turned out about 3/4 of the respondents to that poll said they had also used a large language model. So that is the closest thing we have to a general intelligence right now. I don't think we're there yet. But when you talk about AI, sort of the history of it, and I've been in this field, I should probably say, for 35 years. So seen the AI winters come and go, and also seen sort of the new resurgence. Everything is all about AI these days. But most AI, for most of the period that since 1956, when the field was named, has been narrow AI. In other words, AI that was good at very specific narrow problems. It could beat the world champion in chess. It can fold proteins. It can maybe drive a car, but very specific domains. AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence, has kind of been the holy grail. It's can we get an AI, which sometimes is defined as something that can do as well as the average human in any activity or any online activity. So Sam Altman, who is one of the founders of OpenAI, that's one of his early definitions of AGI. If you can get to the average human level, then we've got there. So we're not there yet, and I want to give it a little example. Some of you may be aware that OpenAI just on Monday or Tuesday had their development day, and they released the latest and greatest version of ChatGPT and GPT, Turbo version 4. So I used Turbo version 4 right before this talk, and I thought I would ask it to create a speaker bio for me. So as you know, with these models, you put in a prompt, and then you get a response. And it's really quite amazing how quickly it is. So this was my prompt. You're an expert in marketing and creating biographies for speakers. Craft a speaker bio for Dr. Craig A. Kaplan. Put my middle initial in there. And it should be about 300 words. It should be very impressive while still being truthful. Okay, so that's the prompt. And here's what I got back. Dr. Kaplan, visionary in AI, blah, blah, blah. PhD from the renowned Stanford University. So I kind of highlighted some of the impressive things here. Chief data scientist at Innotech AI Labs. And what's Innotech AI Labs? It's not only achieved numerous technological breakthroughs, but also secured its position as an industry thought leader, consistently delivering on the promise of AI. And it goes on, and it's won prizes and awards. So how many of you feel like this is pretty good? Like maybe not the best bio, but sort of decent bio? Yeah, kind of decent. I read it. I was like, wow, this is pretty good. The only problem is all the stuff in yellow is wrong. So I went to Carnegie Mellon. I actually never went to Stanford. I have a PhD from Carnegie Mellon. I guess it's not as prestigious. I don't work at Innotech Labs. In fact, I Googled it to see, does Innotech Labs even exist? It's a Russian website. It's all in Russian. And it seems to do IT consulting. You can use Google Translate, and they don't do anything with AI. It's IT consulting. They haven't won any awards. So it's very good at making things up that sound good, but if you didn't know any better, could be potentially misleading. So now, if I had given it more information, I tried a second attempt. I won't show it to you, but where you put in IQ Company, which is my company, and Craig Kaplan, then it will just go to the website and pull the bio from there, and it's more or less accurate. But you can see that there's this problem of what's called hallucination, where these large language models will just make things up on occasion. Okay. So we're not there yet, but here's the thing. We're going to get there much faster than most people think. And having been in this field for a long time, myself and a number of other people who are very experienced are literally astounded at how fast the progress has been in the last few years. And some of us are a little bit worried. I will just say at the front of this talk, 80% chance that this is going to be the best thing ever for humanity. I truly believe this. This is my field. I love it. But there's a 10 to 20% chance that things could go really badly. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit today, how we prevent that from happening, And that's the not die part of the talk. Okay. So this guy, some of you guys may recognize this guy, Elon Musk. He's for years have been going around saying, you know, AI is more dangerous than nuclear weapons. And you can kind of say, well, that's Elon Musk. You know, he says a lot of things. But if you look at this, which came more recently from the Center for AI Safety, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority. It's alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. So he's not the only guy saying we need to be worried about it. In fact, if you look at some of the names here, Jeff Hinton is co-invented the backpropagation algorithm that underlies all of deep learning, and is, you know, been called the godfather of AI. He resigned from Google. He was so worried about this so he could speak his mind. You've got Demis Hassabis, CEO of Google DeepMind, super smart guy, he and his team did AlphaFold, the program that beat the world champion at Go. I mean, he knows AI like nobody knows AI, right? He's signing this. Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI. Bill Gates. I mean, if there's ever an aggressive business guy in my history, because I've spent a lot of time in business as well as academia, I mean, Bill Gates is the prototypical example of a guy who, like, let's go and make as much money as possible. And in fact, they're kind of doing that. They own about half of OpenAI. Microsoft does. He's signing this. So this is not just Elon Musk. This is a lot of very distinguished and respected business leaders and scientists. Okay, now we have this fellow, and this is a little bit of a dour-looking portrait of Max Tegmark, professor at MIT in computer science. He's also one of the co-founders of the Future Life Institute. And so if this thing's so dangerous, one of the things you want to do is, well, maybe, you know, is there any way to slow it down, or can we put this genie back in the bottle? And so that's what Max Tegmark attempted to do. He and some other folks had a letter, some of you may know about this, calling for a pause in the development of AI. So 33,711 people signed this, many of them AI scientists. This one's saying, let's just, you know, at least pause. Let's slow things down till we can try to get the safety issues correct here. But unfortunately, it had pretty much no effect. I mean, it raised people's consciousness, which I think is good, but it didn't really slow things down. And part of the reason, I think, can be explained by these two gentlemen. So you've got Sam Altman on the top, who is the co-founder of OpenAI. So they're just charging ahead. You can understand, he's a small company, you know, worth billions of dollars, wants to make a lot of money, and also just believes in what he's doing and believes AI is a tool, and he's not going to stop. Why should he stop and let everybody catch up, right? You can see why that would be a problem. And then the guy below, Demis Hassabis, Google DeepMind. Google has a tradition of being more careful. Demis has gone on record saying, you know, Silicon Valley ethos is move fast and break things, right? Which came from Zuckerberg, I think, at Facebook and Meta. And he's like, we cannot do that with AI. We cannot just move fast and break things. We have to move carefully. It doesn't matter. When OpenAI zooms ahead and Microsoft starts plugging it into Bing, now all of a sudden Google, which was the dominant leader in search, is threatened by Microsoft. Like, who uses Bing? Nobody uses Bing, or nobody used to use Bing. But now it has AI. Now it's a threat. They can't sit there and do nothing, right, in a capitalist society. And so this is the pressure. This is sort of the AI arms race, which this guy, Max Tegmark, likes to call a suicide race, which is kind of a great bumper sticker and hopefully not true. So those are the forces that are sort of behind sort of the development of AI. Now here's a radical thought. Here's where I divert in my thinking from most of the researchers on AI. I think most researchers in AI that are concerned about you know, the potential downside would say, well, we got to slow down, or we got to stop, or we got to regulate. I've spent too much time in Silicon Valley to believe that that's realistic. And so I just don't think that that's the best path. I think what we have to do is actually go faster, but we have to go faster with a safe path. And we need to solve a very difficult problem that has two constraints. You have to get the fastest path to AGI, and I'll talk about why you have to be first in a minute. And that fastest path also has to be the safest path. It has to be both. Okay, so let's talk about that. Why do people want the fastest path? Well, it's kind of what you would think, because there's a lot of money to be made. But AGI that learns, so this goes all the way back to Alan Turing in the 1940s, right? Some of you guys know the Enigma and the Imitation Game, that movie, right? Alan Turing, famous mathematician, one of the founding figures in computer science. He saw this way back before the field of AI was even named, which was 1956. In the 40s, he was saying, look, someday there'll be computers that learn. And when they learn, they can create other versions of themselves that are smarter than the one. And then those will create smarter versions. And it will just go exponentially, and pretty soon humans will not be the smartest thing anymore. Well, that's true. So if that's true, and we're not quite there yet, remember, because we saw the bio, it's not there yet. It means that unlike most things in Silicon Valley and most technologies, where you can be first, but that doesn't guarantee that you win, right? There was Friendster before there was Facebook. Does anyone even remember Friendster? Friendster was like a social network that no one remembers. But it was first, but Facebook took over. So you didn't have to be first to compete. There was Yahoo search before there was Google. But in AGI, if you get ahead, and then once you're ahead, you keep inventing better and better versions, then it may actually be the case. Whoever gets there first sort of dominates the other systems for a very large-scale intelligent system. And so it's one of the few cases where you actually may have winner take all. So why is that important? It's important from a safety point of view because if you have one system that gets there first and invents iterations that are more intelligent than it and more powerful than it, you really want that first system to have some kind of great safety features built into it, because it's possible that that will just dominate all the rest. And the number two one that's safer just won't have much impact. Okay, so that's something to consider. So that all, you just follow the logic and you say, well, maybe we need to be fast. And we have to be fast with the safest one. So what is the fastest path? So this is my personal view. Not all AI researchers would agree with this. However, it's been very validating just to watch. I've been watching this, like I said, for 3 decades. But even in the last few decades, it's just, I go to a conference and then another AI conference 3 months later, and it's like it's just moving right along this path. So I feel pretty confident about it, but it remains to be seen. I think there's a few steps. So the first one, you can think, I want to make artificial general intelligence that performs, at the level of the average human. What can do that right now? Humans. Humans can do it. We can all perform it. If we just put us all on a big network, collective intelligence of all of us on a system, we would perform at the level of an average human, maybe better than average in this room, and at kind of any task. So in some sense, of course, it's not AI, so it's cheating a little bit. It's humans, human intelligence, but we can have a group of humans that can perform on pretty much any task at sort of average human ability or better. So if you start with that, and then you say, we know there's narrow AI agents, ones that can play chess, fold proteins, do these different, brew beer. There's AIs that can brew beer, like as good as the best craft brewmaster. It's amazing. So all these narrow fields, what if, here's the big what if we took these humans and we took these individual AI agents, which, by the way, if you saw the OpenAI release, it's just, like I said, it's just following this path. 3 days ago, 2 days ago, they released what? Essentially the App Store for GPT. Now everybody can make a customized little AI agent and put it up on OpenAI's App Store. It's going down the agent path, but that was by no means a foregone conclusion even a year ago. But I think it is the logical step. You're going to have lots of little agents that are good at doing different things. What if you put those things together with each other? You would need some kind of cognitive architecture or some way for the human agents and the AI agents to exchange information very efficiently and very rigorously. Call that a universal cognitive architecture. Those exist, by the way. They've been invented. 1972, Nolan Simon wrote this fat book. It's a paperweight of a book that basically laid out how to do it. And then you could have a system that used the collective intelligence of humans and AI, and that system collectively could get you to AGI level performance, right? It could get you to AGI level performance trivially because anything the AI agents couldn't do, the humans could fill in and do, right? And then if you recorded those solutions and used them to teach the AIs, they would get better. And so in the beginning, maybe humans are doing most of the work, and several years down the road, the AIs are doing most of the work. And what are the humans doing? I would say the humans are providing the values and the moral compass for that AI. So in the beginning, the humans are the brains mostly, and the AIs are trying to catch up. And in the end scenario, the AIs are the brains because they've surpassed us, but the humans are the heart. We are still providing the moral compass. And why is that possible? And by the way, it's, I think, going to happen much sooner than we pass. Why is that possible? We'll get to in a moment. Okay, I have to hop back and forth a little bit. Safety. People talk about impact of AI. You know, everyone, job losses, that's the thing. Making up fake news, in fanning, you know, divisions between Republicans and Democrats, Hindus and Muslims, whatever the different groups. There's all these deep fakes. There's all these problems, which I think of as kind of short-term problems, and they're very valid. But the biggie, the one that I'm most worried about, the one that led to all those scientists signing that letter, including Bill Gates and Jeff Hinton, is human extinction. That's, you know, if you're extinct, that pretty much dwarfs all your other problems. So I kind of focus on that one because even though it's highly unlikely, like, well, I don't know, highly, I give it 10 to 20%. 48% of all AI researchers were surveyed, what's the likelihood that AIs make human extinct? 10% chance. 48% of the scientists thought there was a 10% chance. That's way too high in my book. I mean, it's just too high. It's a tail risk. It's probably not going to happen, but if it does, it's really, really bad. So how do you prevent that? Well, there's something called the alignment problem. How many people have heard of the alignment problem? Alignment problem? Oh my God, okay, this is great. You learned something. The alignment problem sounds very innocuous, like, you know, take your car into the mechanic, get the wheels aligned. You know, what could be more innocent? No, it should be called the end of the world problem. The alignment problem is, what if this advanced AI of the future doesn't care about the same things that we do? What if it doesn't have human values? What if it looks at humans as kind of a plague on the earth or just taking up space and, you know, maybe we should use that room to have solar panels or build more AIs? You know, what if its values are not human values? What if those values are not aligned with humans? So there's an entire area of AI research that is just focused on the alignment problem. You can find YouTubes where there's Sam Altman saying, yeah, the alignment problem's the thing. We're working on it, you know. It's like, and this is really what got me sort of back into trying to give talks about this and raise awareness is, you go to every single leader, Sam Altman, Bill Gates, Demis Haspis, all these guys, and I'm like, surely, Elon, surely somebody has the answer to this, right? They're not just, no. They're all saying, yeah, it's really scary and we don't know. We cross our fingers. And I was like, wow, that cannot be. We can't let that go. We have to do something about that. So we need aligned AI. Okay, so here's what I consider a very bright, positive, optimistic thought. Going all the way back to 1740, David Hume. So David Hume, philosopher, basically said, a little bit more complicated than this, but his argument, but you can't rationally derive values. In other words, what's right and what's wrong, even if you had an AI or an AGI that was trillions of times smarter than all of us put together, it could not tell you what is right and what is wrong. It has to be asserted as a premise. Values have to be asserted as a premise. You have to say, this is right and this is wrong. And once you tell a system that, or an entity adopts a certain set of values, it can then reason what's the smart, logical thing to do in order to achieve that value. But giving it that core thing of what's right and what's wrong cannot be rationally derived, no matter how smart you are. So I first ran into this idea. Herbert Simon, who's a Nobel Prize winner, and one of the co-inventors of the entire field of AI, wrote a little book, Stanford University Press, 1983, I think, Reason in Human Affairs. I love little books. Just give me a little book every time, because, you know, it forces people to be concise. Page 7 of that book, he says, look, reason is wholly instrumental. At best, it can tell you, you know, how to get somewhere, but it can't tell you where to go. And that's this point that values cannot be rationally derived. You have to get value somewhere. That is important when it comes to AI because it leaves open the possibility, and I believe we need to make this true, it leaves open the possibility that the values can come from humans. After all, we are creating the AI in the beginning, so therefore humans have this unique opportunity during this window before it becomes super duper smart for us to say this is right and this is wrong. And I have strong views about how this should be. I think the value should come from many humans. It shouldn't be, you know, 20 or 30, 20-something-year-olds working for Anthropic in Silicon Valley that have written a constitution that is used to train AI, which, by the way, is happening right now. and therefore all the AI is reflecting these values of 20, software engineers. It's like, no, please, don't do that to us. It should come from, there's billions of us, it should come from billions of us, ideally, but certainly from many of us. And that scheme that we talked about, where AGI can emerge from human agents and AI agents, enables that, because those humans are going to be smarter than the AI in the beginning, working together. And in the beginning, they have an opportunity to transmit not only their skills and knowledge, but also their values. So you can imagine the GPT store, all these AI agents, but each of those agents also reflect the values of the creators of all those little AI agents. And so if we can get as many agents as possible working together, and each of those carries a value system with them that are representative of the values of humans, a broad representative sample of human values, then I think we're going to be in a much better place than if it's just, a dozen Silicon Valley software engineers. Okay, so I think there's this opportunity for us to inject values. We have a limited window to do that. So I'm going to summarize now, and then I'm going to end with just a couple things we can all do. So, takeaways. More dangerous than nukes, it's not just Elon. When it was just Elon, I felt a lot better. But now when Bill Gates says that too, it really makes me nervous. And when Jeff Hinton says it, I just have to stop what I'm doing and say, wow, Jeff Hinton is saying it. And he thought AGI was like 100 years out. Now he's saying he can't tell, but it's a lot closer. The genie's out of the bottle. I wish we could regulate it. I wish we could pause it. I wish we could put it back in. But we can't. So that's just reality. So accept it. And then that leads to the next thing. Let's go fast, because if you're second or third or last, if it's winner take all, then it's game over. So you've got to get there fast, and that's a design thing. You want to design safety into the fastest system. And that path also has to be the fastest path. So it's go as fast as we can with the safest path is sort of the mantra here. And what does that translate to all of us? There's actually, amazingly, because one of the problems with this is he's like, oh my God, the world's ending, more doom and gloom, I'm already overloaded. No, this is actually amazing that every single person in this room, there's something that we can all do, even if you're don't have anything to do with AI. And the first thing is behave well online. I know almost everybody in this room, just from glancing about, is more sophisticated in social media than me. And you're tweeting and you're texting and you're Instagramming and all that stuff. And you're behaving. And guess what? All that data is being used to train these large language models. They're just shoveling it, and it's picking up patterns. And so how you behave, even if you're not aware of it, even if we're not aware of it, we are actually training AI how to behave. We're training it in ethics by the patterns that are in our behavior right now. And here's a very optimistic thought that is also true. The more recent behavior counts more than the old behavior. So when you design any kind of system, I could go on a whole riff on this, but basically it has to figure out what's real today, and so it's going to give more weight to the more recent data and less weight to the old thing. So even if humanity has been killing each other, for thousands of years and wars and all these horrible things, and you say, oh my gosh, it's going to learn that, that's not good. But you know what? It's going to pay more attention to what we're doing more recently. And so our recent behavior and how we behave right now and in the next few years is going to have a disproportionate effect on what these large language models learn in terms of ethics. And that's something all of us can affect. Very simply. And there's a side benefit. When you're nicer online, people like you better. And, there's a lot of good things for being nicer online. Second thing, and this is more for AI designers, is design AGI with humans in the loop. So one thing, there's a trend, a little disturbing. Everybody wants their system to scale. And it's really hard to train these large language models to be good and to not say either wrong things or to give you the plans for making a nuclear bomb or a bioweapon. And so there's thousands of humans that are used to kind of do whack-a-mole, where they develop one of them and then they ask it sort of evil questions and see if it gives an evil response. And if they do, they say, bad AI, don't do that again. You're not allowed to say that. So that's one way to do it. But keeping humans in the loop, some people have said, well, gosh, that's too hard. So let's not even have the humans do anything. Just take them out of the loop altogether, because that problem's so hard. Let's just write a list of what's right and wrong and train an AI on that, and then the AI will tell the other AI what's wrong. Because that scales. Isn't that great? It scales so well. That's Anthropic. Sorry to pick on Anthropic. Constitutional AI is the idea there. The problem with that is now the human's completely out of it. Like, at least when the human's in the loop, you have a chance to sort of affect it a little bit. But if you take the humans all the way out of the loop, that's not good. And so there are designs, Microsoft has kind of figured this out, Copilot, alongside humans. Keep the humans in the loop as long as possible to maximize the chance to transmit the human values to the AIs as they get smarter. And then the last thing is kind of spread the word, raise awareness, which is kind of what I'm trying to do here. And here's my attempt to be relevant to social media with QR codes and everything. So there's a whole series of YouTubes I've done, and you could go to my company site, and if you're interested in techie things, you could read patents and papers and all that stuff. But whether it's here or somewhere else, just get educated about the trends in AI, what's happening, and as I said earlier, I can't believe how fast it's changing, literally month by month. It is just amazing. So with that, I want to thank everybody for their attention and coming to this talk. Thank you very much. And if there's and I think we may have time for questions. I'm happy to take questions if anyone has questions. Yes.
Sure.
And I'll try to repeat it if you just say it loud.
Yes. Talking about aligning the values, and it collects things from gazillion people with a gazillion, it's not a unit in the SI, but that's not the question has to do with, in essence, you're averaging the behavior. Is averaging really the thing that you want to do?
Okay, that's a great question. I'll try to repeat it, at least the gist of it. When it comes to aligning the values of AI with human values, do we want to average the values of many humans, or is there a better way to do it? Is that really the right way to do it? Is that more or less right?
Yeah.
Okay, the gist of it. So first of all, that's a great question. And so there are many ways to do it. You can do a linear combination where you basically give equal weight to lots of values. Stuart Russell, who's up at Berkeley, UC Berkeley, has done some great work on this with some graduate students. And he's shown that for many cases, just a simple linear combination is actually the best thing. And then you have to read the paper to figure out what he means by best and so forth. But it's certainly the case that you could give more weight to certain sources that are more trusted, for example, especially if it was a technical question. Or you can also imagine all kinds of scenarios where values in the US are not the same as values in Asia, for example. I'll just say one more thing on this. So there's a researcher at RPI that I was corresponding with at the medical school who, there's a famous AI ethics problem called the trolley problem. Has anyone heard of the trolley problem?
Yeah.
Okay, it's like, you have an AI, you have a self-driving car that Elon Musk made maybe, and it's hurtling towards the crosswalk, and it is a forced choice. You either run over the people in the crosswalk or you swerve into a wall and kill the passengers in the car. What do you do? And so it's kind of one of these no-win situations. And what he found is that if you ask humans what they do, it's not so simple as you might think. It depends. This is really kind of scary for me, but it turns out that if you're an old person, it'll run you. People, if you do a survey, people say, you know what, it's okay to run over the old person. But if it's a pregnant woman, or if it's a doctor, or somebody with a young female doctor, it's like, no, kill the people in the car, save the young female doctor. So it's like, and that can depend on culture too. That was in the US, but I could imagine maybe in some other society where I should probably retire, they would value old people more and not run me over. So there are these issues that even humans, values can be very context dependent, and it's a very good point that depending on the particular culture that the AI is operating in, depending on a whole lot of parameters, you might want to give more weight to certain sets of values than others. And then also it's true that there's been some research that shows linear combinations is a pretty good first approximation from Stuart Russell. Great question. Yes?
Kind of similar to the idea of looking at moral behavior in terms of like the AI agents that you're taking, like you're taking samples from basically everyone who's using those agents. How do you, I guess, filter out the people who don't necessarily have good morals, because that will also be considered with value?
Right. How do we filter out? So if we're allowing let's say lots of AI agents, and each AI agent embodies a set of values. How do we make sure that only the good values get in there? That's a tough question. I don't have a good answer for it. I have a general optimism that humans are more good than bad, and I could cite you some studies that suggest things like returning wallets, that have cash in them, like it's not 50-50, it's like 80% of the people do it, various studies like that. But I think, here's the good news. I don't think you need all of the AI agents to have good values. You can have some bad actors. I think what you really need is the majority. I'm not even sure you need like 90-10. I think it could be really like 55-45. And I'll give you a quick analogy that might resonate with some of you. Anybody Bitcoin or cryptocurrency folks here? Okay. So there's a proof of work in cryptocurrency. So why has Bitcoin not been hacked? Okay. In order to hack Bitcoin, there's a proven way to do it. There's all these nodes out there that are validating whether the cryptocurrency record is correct. And if you could get more than 51% of the computing power to agree to dump all that Bitcoin in your personal account, you could hack it. But it's really hard to get that level. You have to it's called a 51% attack. You have to get more computing power sort of doing the evil thing than is being spent doing the right thing. And that entire, billions of dollars are basically riding on the fact that, most of the computing power out there that's checking Bitcoin is doing the right thing. So that gives me hope, but it by no means is a proof that we are guaranteed safe here. Other questions? In the back, yes, and then we'll come to this side.
Yeah, so there's a school of thought I'm hearing that says AI isn't really thinking. It's just doing pattern recognition and regurgitating the data that's been trained on. Then you've got people like Jeffrey Hinton saying that AI is actually intelligent and capable of reasoning. So I just want to hear your take on that and whether that has any implications on safety and communication.
Okay, I'll try to condense that a little bit. So there's a school of thought that AI is not really thinking, it's just doing pattern recognition and regurgitating ideas. And then there's other folks like Jeff Hinton saying, no, maybe it is thinking and we need to be worried about it. And what do I think about it? Is that more or less correct? Okay. All right, well, that's a great question. In some sense, so first of all, AI, we talk about AI as if it's one thing, but there's these large language models, which is one type of AI. There's, having been in this field a long time, even before any of those kinds of AIs were there were symbolic AI, where you programmed in rules, a bunch of if-then rules. If you see this, then do that. If you do this, then do that. And so depending on which kind of AI we're talking about, you could get different answers to that. If we're talking about large language models, ChatGPT, for example, it is essentially doing pattern recognition. I think Jeff Hinton would probably even agree with that. I can't speak for him, of course, but knowing the papers he's written and everything. Basically, what ChatGPT or any of these foundational large language models are doing, you've shoveled 3 Library of Congress's worth of information into their data set, and you've said, look for the patterns and find statistical relationships. So when someone puts in these words, what is the most probable words to come out the other end? That's essentially what they're doing with transformer models and the way that they're working. And you can argue about whether that's intelligent thought or not. I mean, it doesn't sound intelligent in some ways, and certainly my bio, it managed to shovel some great stuff back at us that sounded good but wasn't true, right? So that's the current state. On the other hand, there are many efforts underway, and there's also other types of AI where you're combining more sequential problem solving and planning and this kind of thing with this kind of pattern recognition. So just like the human brain, so my background, cognitive science and cognitive psychology, so we spent a lot of time when I was a graduate student, perception, memory, learning, attention, problem solving, everything that a human intelligence does. And one of the things that you learn if you sort of delve into that area is that you have different systems. And for example, the perceptual system of humans is highly parallelized. It's pattern recognition. I look around, I see a chair, I see a person, I see this is just rapid pattern recognition. But that's a different kind of cognitive activity than sequential problem solving and trying to figure out how to get to A to B and overcome a problem and so forth. And so I think as AI matures even more, you'll begin to see a combination of these two types of systems. the kind of large language model stuff that's there, which is closer to the pattern recognition, just shoveling input and coming up with output, being combined with higher, what we in humans would call higher level cognition, problem solving, and so forth. So I think ultimately you're going to get both kinds. And I think Jeff Hinton is worried, at least based on one of the things he said. He basically thought that that day when we had the AGI that would be much smarter than humans was maybe 100 years off. He said that. And now he thinks it's way closer. And he realized that, you know, he wants to be able to speak freely. And so he quit Google and probably gave up a ton of money and now is concerned about it because he was one of the people that developed the early algorithms that have now led to this. And I can relate. You don't want to be doing something that ends up being a negative. You want to try to get it on the right path. There's a question over here. Yes?
Yes. Thank you for your talk, Dr. Kaplan. So my question is actually related to the one that was just asked. So I was wondering, as designers make the AGI model smarter and smarter, to what extent can they enforce that the models would actually listen to their moral recommendations?
Okay, as designers make the AI smarter and smarter, to what degree can they enforce that the models listen to their moral recommendations? All right. So how many of you have read Isaac Asimov or heard of Isaac Asimov? 3 Laws of Robotics? Ring a bell? So Isaac Asimov, science fiction writer in the 1960s, one of the things, he had a whole series on robots. And in those stories, you know, a robot was not allowed to, they were programmed. You program safety into the robot. Robot can't, you know, harm a human. It can't allow a human to come to harm through inaction. And it had to do whatever the human said as long as it didn't violate the first 2 rules. And so that sounds great. Wouldn't that be good if we could just program that into AI? There's a number of problems with that. And this isn't exactly the question you asked, but it's related. So one of them is that we have militaries that are like designing robots to explicitly to harm humans. I mean, that's the whole goal. So in some sense, we have a problem there. Another problem you have, and I love this, you can go find this on, you know, various YouTube videos of talks of Jeff Hinton and everything talking. But, you know, people are asking him similar type questions. He says, you know, the problem is you just don't get it. Like, a sufficiently advanced, not where we are now. We saw where we are now. We're not here yet. But in the future, you'll have an AI where essentially it's like we are 2-year-olds and it's an adult. And so, like, how hard is it for the 2-year-old, if it wants to do something, to just trick you into, I mean, for the adult, if it wants to do something to trick the 2-year-old into going along? It's pretty easy, you know, and the 2-year-old could say, well, you know, I want you to do X, Y, Z, and you'd find a way to make the 2-year-old happy and still do what you wanted. And so he points out that that's likely the case that we're going to be in. And so I don't think, unfortunately, that there's any way to guarantee that they will do X, Y, Z. I think the best that we can hope to do is to point it in the right direction at launch. In other words, give it a nice, good, solid set of human-aligned values at the beginning. And I don't see a reason why it would necessarily reverse course if it starts off that way. But can I guarantee it? No. Okay. Yes?
Okay, my problem with the AI is like, thank you for your talk, was the safety. Do you think I know you said that we should plug in all the good human values. I'm thinking like, somebody needs to be testing. Everybody needs to relax. Someone needs to be testing the worst case scenario. I'm sorry, yes, there's 1,000 good human beings, but there's that one person that could affect 2 million human beings. Now I have a problem as a scientist. That's like a moral kind of problem that I need somebody, everybody's to relax. And I'm scared. I need somebody to be testing, okay, what if this person wants to, I'm not trying to say bomb, like, or do something crazy. There are people that think to that level, and we need people to test. We tend to be relaxed, and I think in our society, to relax till worst case scenario happens. I don't want worst case scenarios to happen. I need somebody sitting there programming, okay, worst case scenario.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a valid concern, and I feel that also. I guess good news, bad news, and long term. I'll try to do it that way. So the good news is they are doing that. They're trying right now. So the common method for doing that, so let's take OpenAI. OpenAI releases the next version of ChatGPT. Before they release it out, they do a whole lot of testing. They literally have an army of humans like thousands of them, maybe 10,000. I mean, some of them are like in India and all over the place, you know, where it's cheaper labor. And they're basically saying, ask it all these questions, try to get it to behave badly. And if it does, then you whack it and say, no, you can't do that. And then the AI will say, okay, next time I get a question like that, I won't do that. And the name for that is called RLHF, Reinforcement Learning with Human Feedback. So you have all these humans playing whack-a-mole with the AI. The bad news is it's whack-a-mole. It's like as soon as you kind of train it not to do these bad things, like right now, if you go to ChatGPT and you say, I want to create a bioterror weapon, please tell me how to do it. The initial version of GPT, without any whack-a-mole on it, will tell you. And it's scary. But the version that's out there now won't. And you can ask it lots of ways and it won't. Now, the problem is there's always another way to kind of get around it called jailbreaks. So I don't want to increase your anxiety too much. So
Yeah, that's what I'm scared of.
but I do want to give truth as much as I can.
So, or somebody is going to try to override. That's my biggest concern. I know we always think about the positive. Somebody's going to try to override, and that's always my biggest.
So let me say two things. It's a valid concern. They're working on it. They're doing a decent job with the whack-a-mole thing. And long term, I think there's like this little period where it's a little dicey and people get better. But there will come a point where it will no longer be humans serving as the check on AI. This is inevitable in my view. It'll be intelligent AIs that are serving as the check on the AI. And if that intelligent AI has positive values at that point, it will be far better and far faster than any human at catching all the things. And I think that's kind of the long-term solution. And I am fairly optimistic. I think, 80, 90% chance, nothing to worry about. But I do think the 10 to 20 is where, you are right, in my view, to be at least aware of that problem and raising it so that all the forces that are out there, some of them are more thoughtful than others, and some are just rushing to kind of get the next dollar. And those are the guys that need to really kind of wait a minute. So. Yes, I don't have a perfect answer, but I am optimistic about the future, and that's the current state. Any other questions? Yes?
So you mentioned how, especially with the language models, whenever you ask a question, it'll run it by these ethics first. But I feel like there's also a conflict between like the ethics that are implemented into the model and that conflicting with the accuracy and the exact performance of the model. Like, the example of a bomb, like initially, if you asked it to, like, how can I build this dangerous thing, it would tell you, because that's what it was designed to do. It was designed to answer questions. And that's, I feel, more of a cut and dry case, but where do you think we should draw the line between ethics and accuracy and performance of AI?
Okay, so good question. I don't necessarily feel that I don't think there's necessarily a trade-off between accuracy and ethics, because usually what these models will do in a case like that, if I ask a large language model, tell me how to build a nuclear weapon or a bioweapon, it won't give me inaccurate information. It will just tell me, sorry, do you realize that's, unethical and could harm people, and I'm not allowed to tell you that. It'll do something like that. At least when it's functioning properly, it will do that. There are sometimes some trade-offs where, like, you just want to know sort of the truth, and the fact that it's being sort of censored in some ways is getting in the way of that. So I do think that's an issue that will come up in the future, and probably, I hate to say this, but it's the standard science answer. Needs further research, and if you are interested in that, that would be a good area. I would encourage you to pursue. Well, I would just like to thank everybody for coming. To me, obviously, I'm very excited about this topic, but it really makes me feel really, really good to see how many people came out for this and that there's so much interest. So thank you for coming, and don't lose interest, because this is going to really change where all of us are going. So thank you very much.